everyone, it's April and
Morgan.
And we're back today to talk to you again about the importance of knowing what your PSA is. We want to thank everyone who reached out after our last broadcast, who had questions and comments, and were thanking us for doing this. And we thought that it's so important that we would come back at you with some more. So we're going to do some more of these little conversations, these little talks, and maybe a podcast, who knows, and make it official. And when you make things official, what do? You get t-shirts made, and ours say, hey, what's your PSA? So stick with us as we journey through this. We're going to go through some different topics that are related to prostate health. We'll go over what some of the myths are. We'll talk about today the importance of knowing and checking your PSA. We'll talk more about the other tests involved with diagnosis and other things like telling your family, telling your wife, and most importantly, what does your wife think about this? What did your wife go through? What about your wife?
What about her?
What about your wife? So anyways, we thought that we would do this interview style today, and I'd start off by asking my dear husband some questions. So Morgan, first question for you is, what is the importance of checking your PSA? Why is that so important?
In my opinion, it's the minimum of what you need to know about what's going on with your prostate and your prostate health. As an African American, prostate cancer is more prevalent in our community, so it's imperative that we at least understand why we need to be checking, why we need to ask the questions, why our family needs to ask the questions of us, and when to start checking. I would say you're probably in your 40s, 50s. Definitely by your 50s you should be doing it, but it may need to be 40s if you had prostate cancer beforehand in your family. Somebody else died of prostate cancer. You may need to check at 30, 35, 40.
Okay. So can you also share with our viewers a little bit more about your journey, a little bit more about your prostate story?
So when I say that, your PSA is your normal PSA is 4. My PSA went above 4, and I was having the digital rectal exams, and it was above 4. They came back and said, "Hey, you're a little high." I did a couple things. The prostate PSA went back down below 4. Then it went up to 6. When it went up to 6, they decided that they wanted to do a biopsy to ensure that I didn't have any cancer within my body. We did the biopsy, all of which is uncomfortable. The biopsy, the digital rectal exam are all both uncomfortable. I'll tell you guys up front, fellas.
Keeping it real.
But through that, I didn't have cancer, and that was great. Okay, I didn't have cancer, but my PSA went back down again, and then it went up. And when it went up this time, they did an MRI, and they saw some things. And then it was continuing to go up. But just because your PSA goes up doesn't mean that you have prostate cancer. You can have high PSA because, like I said earlier, because of riding your bike before your test, because of a enlarged prostate. There are things within your body, and everybody's body is different, that will cause your PSA to go high. But you need to understand and see what's going on within your body. And the only way to know is to know, hey, what's your PSA?
What's your PSA? So, as I mentioned earlier, we've heard a bunch of stories from people since our previous broadcast with stories of what their journey is. Can you give us some more examples of other people's journeys that you've heard from? Of course, not mentioning anyone by name, but just some other things that we've heard about that other people have told us since our initial broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, I know an individual whose prostate went high. They didn't do anything at that point in time. It went low, back down to normal. Then it went back high, and again, they're like, well, how come we didn't do anything when it went high before? So this time they said, okay, let's do an MRI. And they did the MRI. The MRI didn't show anything. But because this individual had a family member that had cancer, they said, we're going to do a biopsy. And then when they did the biopsy, they found some cancer, which was a Gleason score 3. In my case, it was different. I was the reverse. So mine went up and down a couple times. Then they did the biopsy, didn't find anything. Then they went and did the MRI, saw some things, and then when they saw what they saw, the lesions, they went back and said, let's get some cores, and they got those cores. And two of those cores that they had, or one of those cores of the three that they took had cancer.
Okay, and the cores are kind of the pieces of the prostate tissue that they took during the biopsy? Or?
Yeah, so during the biopsy, they grab pieces of the tissue and they grab it from each quadrant, and they'll call it quadrant of the prostate. So they're grabbing tissue samples there, and then what they'll do is test those samples for cancer. And if they've determined that there's cancer in there, they'll assign a score to it.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot today. We've talked about biopsy, we've talked about MRI, we've talked about PSA. So that's a lot. So we're not going to keep you too long for today. We're going to come back and talk to you more about those diagnostic tools and more about treatment options. And again, I think that one of the most important things to remember is every person is different. Every person's Gleason score, which we'll talk more about, is different. Every person's situation is different. And not any one thing means that you have cancer versus it doesn't for every person. So I think we'll wrap it up here. We thank you for joining us.
Yes,
and I just want to thank all the ladies who reached out to me personally, who told me, hey, after your broadcast before, I went and I asked the people who are important in my life, the men who are important to me, what their PSA was. Keep doing that, ladies and gentlemen. Go get yours checked and ask the gentleman that you know if they know what their PSA, so they can get theirs checked, because we want these numbers to go down. We want less prostate cancer. We want better prostate health for all of you. So for today,
it's about community, and we're that community.
We're that community. Be that community with us. Let's lower the rates of prostate cancer within not just the African American community, but overall. We can do it, but it starts with, like my husband said, that first step is knowing,
hey, what's your PSA?
So go find out, and we hope you have a wonderful day.